we are again. Another episode on the Main Street Randyland YouTube channel, the Randy's Collection series. And quite fitting is when we talk about things that I've had for a long time. And one of them that I've had for a long time is this pinball machine right here. It's called Captain Fantastic. Now, Captain Fantastic is a late 70s game, and it was a very popular game when it came out. It had the Elton John figure and, a lot of action on the playfield. #1 game. When Captain Fantastic came out, it dominated in the arcade markets. Now, at that point, I wasn't really playing much in the arcades anymore. Because why? In 1974, the Fascination opened. And arcades were like, only a little if I had extra time, because I was at Fascination playing day and night. So I played in Fascination 74, 75, 76. By the second year, I was playing 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. I didn't have time for arcades. But after I got thrown out in 76, suddenly I had a little more time again to go back to the arcades and play some games, and that's when Captain Fantastic was out in that era. And I always loved pinball to begin with, but certain machines have a nice layout and a nice design. I mean, this has got a beautiful back glass with a lot of mirror in it, and not just the colors, but the mirror and the characters. Now, I'm not an Elton John fan. I couldn't even tell you one song that Elton John plays. But you know what? I like the pinball machine. And the images on the glass, if you look at them, and you look at the shall we say, the well-endowed bustiness of the chicks at the concert for Elton John, watching him play pinball because he was the pinball wizard, you'll see that they're pretty large-breasted women, and they're very perky. And shockingly to say, I don't think they're wearing a bra. I mean, back then, it was unheard of. You always wore a bra, but not in these girls. I mean, look at this. I mean, like you're gonna tell me she's wearing a bra? I hardly think so. I mean, this girl over here, I love the coloring on that. It looks like watermelons. What are they doing? The tank top shirt. I mean, come on. The halter, tied together, the shirt. And I mean, this is very 70s. And if you stop and think about it, these girls who were, out there in the club scene in the 70s dressed like that, these are your grandmoms today. But grandmom, you dressed like that at the Elton John concert? Go figure, right? Well, I never went to an Elton John concert. I never went to any concert like that. But I love playing pinball, and this is one of my favorites. Now, I've had this machine. I have to laugh. I was running Fascination in Keansburg Amusement Park, and I started over there when I was 18 years old, just turning 19 in October of 1979. And by 1981, I made a deal to buy a bunch of pinball machines from an operator I knew who had a bunch of machines that he was phasing out from his root collection. He used to put machines out on locations. At that time, you had pinball machines and 5 and 10s and, laundromats. They were there. This guy by the name of Richard Sininsky, hey Richie, and his brother Frank, they formed a company called Alpha Omega Amusements. And the reason they called it Alpha Omega was like the fraternity of the colleges, because they made their big hit by supplying college towns with machines. And college towns had a lot of kids, and they were young themselves, just kind of out of college, and they knew that scene, and they saw a market for it. So Alpha Omega started supplying, I believe even colleges were supplied with machines from Alpha Omega, Richie and Frank Sininsky. So I met Richie when I was in Keansburg, and we started Action Arcade, which was on the corner of Carr Avenue and Beachway, directly across the street from the main amusement park where the Fascination was, about a half a block down. It was right across the street from the Kentucky Derby we were running. And we created Action Arcade. And to get started, we worked out a percentage deal with Alpha Omega, who supplied us with some of the brand new video games that were out at that time. And the rest of the machines were my machines for my collection. But we didn't have the latest brand new machines, which you needed at that time, because this was the very early 80s where arcades were hot. So I got to know Richie pretty good, nice guy, and he was running an arcade in Long Branch called Wizard's World, another very happening place. So Richie, turns out, and his brother had an upstairs attic in the shop that they were working at, filled with pinball machines that they were no longer using on the route. Why? Because there was a transition of pinballs in the late 70s to the early 80s. 79 came out the first digital pinball machine. And that's where the scoring was done by computer, as were the functions on the machine. Well, the digital scoring was new. Everybody, was like fascinated with the computer digital scoring. So the digital pinball machines dominated the market quickly. So all the electromechanical games that were still young and great games got phased out early because the new digital machines were coming on the scene and taking all the dominance of play. Captain Fantastic, as top game as it was, had a short-lived life due to the changeover of digital pinball machines, because Captain Fantastic is a completely mechanical game. You have all the score reels to turn, and all the mechanisms inside are relays and circuits and cams, and nothing computerized on this machine. So I bought a bunch of pinball machines. I bought all the pinball machines in his attic. I made one big deal. And they delivered them in their truck to my place in Keansburg. I had no room in the arcade, so where did they go? They dropped them off at Fascination on the boardwalk. And it was just after the season, so it didn't matter. It's like, you're closed here, but I was still open year-round there on the weekends, but very few people would come in. I had them standing all around, disassembled, all around my floor, just enough space to get to the tables on the one side for the people who would come in to play. And I would work on the machines. And I fixed a few of them up, and I put them over in the arcade. But I had, if I tell you I had 50 more pinball machines that I didn't have a space for, that's true. So where did I end up putting them? I stuffed them under the Fascination machines. Can you believe that? Disassembled, the heads come off, the bodies come off their legs, and I worked them behind the machines and got them underneath there and had all the extra pinball machines stashed inside Fascination, and Captain Fantastic was one of them. But before it got stashed away, I worked on Captain Fantastic, and people say, look at that Playfield. It has very little wear on it. Look at that. Usually the paint gets rubbed off from the ball rolling on it so much because it got so much play, particularly around where these lights would light up, because there's a changeover from plastic to wood and the wood would chip away. You see how the paint's coming off a little bit here? Well, that's what it would be doing all over the place, particularly around your flippers and your lights there. I got some paint coming off here. Why? Because the ball constantly hits these targets. But typically, Captain Fantastic's, this whole area here, this whole area would be like down to bare wood, and it wouldn't have the coloring of the paint, it would be gone. So why then does this Captain Fantastic have a playfield that looks so great? Because I polyurethaned that playfield in 1981. I stripped off everything from this playfield. Every screw, every bumper, everything came off down to the plain painted wood. And I polyurethaned several coats, the entire playfield, so that it would protect the paint from coming off. Now, yes, you can wear through polyurethane too, but it's going to take a lot longer to do so. So this machine has held up all these years because of all the work that I did on it back in 1981. And it still works today. Put in my quarters. I made it 50 cents. Keep up with the times. 1, 2. Right on up. Here comes the ball. A quick start. And off we go. Captain Fantastic. Ooh, look at those strong flippers, huh? Oh, the double flipper right in the middle. And you know what? We are about 40 degrees in here, and the machine is going to be a little bit sluggish because of the temperature. Because it doesn't like cold weather, because its oils will get harder. Look at that. Oh, right down the middle. Ball 3, game over, 58,600. Not too bad. I got some extra points because my bonus counter wasn't resetting as quickly as it should have, and that's why I was talking about the oils, because it's so cold in here right now that the oils are not as thin as they should be. But during the summer, that shouldn't be a problem, and we'll give it a new shot of oil at the beginning of the season to make sure it's good. So Captain Fantastic and me go back a long way. He's one of my favorite games, but they all have special histories. All the machines, they all have a special history here and some kind of connection to my life in the amusement business, which is why it's the Main Street Randyland YouTube channel. And we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.